Nobody ever noticed that they have left their footprints on that job. So however junior your job, whatever be your job, remember you have to touch the people you work with. And you have to leave things in that job that will live on after you. So you don't just do your job. You do your job so that you can leave a legacy. You have to shoot for respect in organizations and in leadership, not for popularity. You don't work in a company to win an election, huh? You work in a company to deliver results and make a difference to the people. Shoot for respect, not for popularity. The ninth is the power of communication. And this is not true just in business or anywhere, but I think anywhere. And I've learned the hard way about not communicating enough. When I was head of sales in Hindustan Lever, I put in this bold change agenda saying I will transform the sales organization and I will make it happen in 18 months. 3 years down the line, I had implemented about half of what I had intended. And that's when I realized that I had just not communicated my strategy enough so that it would get into execution. You know, strategy into action, strategy into execution. The other thing you realize in life is that once you communicate, it does not mean everyone has understood. The other thing you learn is that silence does not mean agreement. And the only way to get over this is to communicate, and make sure that communication is two-way communication. So I run a town hall or an open house every quarter. I have one tomorrow morning, in fact, at 10 o'clock in Mumbai. I have every factory, every branch office, every location of Cadbury on webcast. I've done it for the last 7 years now. So I've done, 27 or 28 in a row. And I communicate every quarter what we're going to do in the company. What's the vision? What's the strategy? What is the strategy into action? What's gone well? What's not gone well? Every single quarter. And then we have at least a half-an-hour Q&A session so that I get to hear what's in people's minds. We also have few other things where people can come in, meet the leaders that they have, and talk about what they want to talk about. We also have something where we're trying to really build a culture where people are willing to speak up. One of the things in India is because of this significant power distance and levels. What happens is, if a junior person goes and complains to somebody very senior, the person in the middle will go and bash him up. How did you bloody go and tell that fellow, yaar? How did you do that? So we have a very strict no retaliation policy. Somebody will lose his job if there is any form of retaliation for somebody who speaks up. They will lose their jobs. You have to allow people the confidence to speak up about whatever they want. And that's the power, really, of two-way communication. And finally, winning is one thing, but winning the right way is everything. And this is something that you have to be particularly careful of in India. And I'll tell you, every one of us has been through hard times on issues of ethics in business. I want to read out a quote that was written by one of the founding fathers of Unilever. He said that, "I believe that nothing can be greater than a business, however small it may be, that is governed by conscience. And that nothing can be meaner or more petty than a business, however large, governed without honesty and without brotherhood." And winning is important to every one of us in business. And I damn well want to fight against the competitor and win. But we will always do it the right way. And if we don't do it the right way, there are very, very serious consequences for people who don't. There are various other things we do where we start, at the end of the day, business is not just an entity within the four walls of the business. You're playing a role in the larger community. You've seen in the video about our cocoa farming. Cadbury planted the first cocoa tree in this country. If you go to many of the cocoa farms in India, the farmers will call it the Cadbury tree. right? They won't call it a cocoa tree. You saw the thing about Sarvam. Sarvam is an initiative with the Aurobindo Ashram in Pondicherry after the tsunami. For 6 or 7 years, it's a multi-crore engagement that we have done about village redevelopment to create a model for village redevelopment post the tsunami. We have something called the Delicious Difference Week, where for 1 week every year, every single employee, right, who wants to, goes out and spends time with schools, cooking meals, providing midday meals to children, and whatever. And this is all just a small way of saying that we care. You care for things outside of your business, you care for the community around you. And I think companies really need to do more and more of things like this. So really, this is what I wanted to talk to you about. 10 lessons from my personal experience. They're not high-funda stuff. It's just practical things that I have seen during my 30 years in work. And I must say, I am reminded again about my time here in this fantastic campus, in this fantastic institute. You must maximize your opportunity in this place. I can tell you, you will treasure it forever. Just the way I treasure my experience and my time here, even to this day. But beyond this institute, you will find that life is wonderful. Whatever you may choose to do in life, make the most of it, have fun, enjoy. Work is never meant to be a pain. The day you get up in the morning and say, oh, bloody hell, I have to go to that job again. And then you hear too many stories about work-life balance, and it's almost like painting this scenario where, work is in this dungeon and life is in this beautiful sunny park, Garden of Eden. It is not like that. Everything is part of your life. Work is part of your life, and your family is part of your life. Everything is part of your life, and you have to make the most of that. So I really wish the very best for every one of you. I hope each of you achieves your dreams when you go out of this place, and really makes the most of what this place has taught you. And more important than that, also make an impact on the society around you. Right? So good luck, everyone, and thank you very much. So we started a bit late, we've run a little over, but if people have some questions, I'd be very happy to take it. I have some time before my flight, so I'd be very happy to take any questions from the audience. Which one? The East Africa experience.
How did you turn it around?
How did I turn it around? Many of the lessons I've talked about today. The power of focus, right? Out of 10 brands, we said we will focus on 4 brands and invest in 4 brands. This adage, right? If you want, you have to cut the weeds if you want to let the plant grow. Otherwise, the weeds take away all the nutrition that the plant needs to grow. So true in business. So you have to recognize what the weeds are. And people, and the nutrition and the resources of the company are going behind the weeds. You have to pluck them away so that the plant can grow. So we focused on just 4 brands in the business. I started communicating every quarter so people felt that there was hope. I set an ambition of saying we will deliver double-digit growth, right? And the thing about setting an ambition is you also set yourself up for failure. So, you have to have courage to set an ambition, but you also have to then have the courage to put your neck on the line and make it happen, right? So we set a high ambition, we set a power of focus strategy. I communicated a lot. I went a lot into the grassroots. Within 6 months, I had traveled more into Africa and into the marketplace than any of the Africans in Africa. Believe me, every week I used to take a jeep and I was out there. And I was able to make differences in the trade, right? That, people could not see obvious things because if you don't go out there, it's like the army not knowing what the front line is like, right? And sitting in an air-conditioned room, planning strategy only, and not worried about how it will get executed at the front. You have to go and understand what the terrain of the front is. What is Kargil like or Siachen like? Somebody has to know the terrain. So, so the things I did in East Africa are at the heart of the story that I have told you, right? But the other thing is, I'll tell you another thing. And I don't know if those of you who have lived in the US and all have experienced this or not, but when Indians move to Southeast Asia, Indians find it very hard to adjust. Indians are not culturally sensitive. Indians have a way of doing things. So if you speak loudly, if you, butt in a meeting, you'll continue to do that when you go overseas into a different place. And suddenly everyone starts looking at you and they start writing you off. So, the other thing that I learned is cultural sensitivity. Just understanding that this is their country and I have to adapt to their country rather than expect that, even though I'm the boss, that everyone's going to adapt to me. The consumer is the African consumer. I'm not selling to the Indian consumer there. And I have to do what's right by the African consumer. So, it's, there are bits and pieces of the story, and I don't want to just repeat the whole story again, but the lessons are all here. Yeah, does it help in any way? Yeah, okay. Sorry, there was a question there, yeah?
My question was around the sprint versus the marathon.
Yeah.
I feel maybe in India we actually do too much of the marathon. As in you see politicians, you see cricketers, you see lots of people kind of refusing to put an end to their careers and going on and on and on. Isn't there some lessons to be learned from a business perspective to back the younger ones, bring in newer ideas and kind of whittle down the top?
Absolutely. So, the marathon is not the politician's marathon in business. I was telling over lunch today that I can tell you MNC companies, and I think Indian companies operate slightly differently.